Okay, so this one says that some people believe that vaccines are useless because, for example, when there is an epidemic or that it breaks out, that even vaccinated people also get infected.
Okay.
So,
So no need since they since after getting vaccinated they will still get
Yeah,
infected.
I understand.
So
I'd like to address a
mm,
misconception. Some people
mm,
feel that, of course, a lot of us when we're young,
mm,
when we're not, that's within, few months before we attained,
mm.
a year old, we all received most of the routine vaccines.
Yeah, that
And
means
of course, there's a general perception that because of that, you can never actually fall prone to some. But that is not really true for certain reasons, and neither does it really water down the importance of taking the vaccines. But I'll just give you a few reasons why that can happen.
okay.
And first and foremost, not all the vaccines offer lifelong protection. Okay, so some of the vaccines just offer what we call partial protection.
Okay.
And then as you get older, the protection that they have offered, will gradually start waning off. Of course, the purpose was that at least they give you protection. In fact, the main purpose for such vaccines most times is to protect people from getting these infections when they were not even up to 5 years of
Okay.
age,
Okay.
because at that time they are very very vulnerable. The immunity is not strong. Okay, so they can still have the infections when the immunity wanes off, but the infections will not have been as severe if they were not vaccinated at
Vaccinated
all.
at all.
So
Okay.
they'll most likely have milder forms. Another reason could also be we need to look at the what we call the cold chain
Okay.
management of vaccines. So vaccines, when they are produced, they need to be monitored within certain standard temperatures. They need to be preserved in certain ways.
Mm.
Okay, and that's why in resource low settings like ours, where you have primary health centers in the villages and they don't have enough power holding, electricity supply, we ensure, the government usually ensures that these primary health centers have solar refrigerators so that these vaccines can still be preserved at the temperatures. Okay, so, but sometimes, we are dealing with human beings. There's always the human factor. Sometimes some precautions may not be observed in, preserving adequately these vaccines. And there are some systemic issues too, like maybe the solar fridge is breaking down and, the epileptic power supply. So you still have one or two vaccines that may lose some potency.
Potency.
So by the time they are administered, it's not going to, give the optimal effect it should have. So this is another likely reason. Another likely reason is that, sometimes some of these infections, the organisms that cause them from time to time do undergo what we call mutations. Okay, they upgrade, they evolve. So yeah, you can have other strains that can come up that are a bit different from the one that the vaccine is protecting you against. And it could be that that outbreak has to do with a different strain. I remember COVID-19, so many different strains that we
Strengths came on
experienced.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that could also be
Yeah.
a likely reason. Also, regardless of the fact that you have received the vaccine, sometimes if you have repeated exposure to a high dose of the organism, like usually will occur during an outbreak.
Mm.
Let's say there's a cholera outbreak and you are that source of water that is contaminated, you are repeatedly drinking it. Or well, let me not use cholera, but just let's say measles, for instance, because measles we received the vaccine when we were
Mm.
young. So repeated high that is repeated exposure to high dose of the disease causing organism too can also overwhelm our immune
Immune
response
response.
sometimes. So these are various reasons why we people may still vaccinate and still come down with some of those infections.
Oh, that's clear enough.
Yeah.
So when this happens, is there room for those people to go again and receive another vaccine? To
Okay.
cover up when the
Well,
immunity has gone down, maybe because of repeated exposure to the organism
okay. Well,
causing
let
this.
me use this opportunity to say that there is also something called natural natural immunity.
Okay.
Okay, so there are some infections that we get exposed to, and then the body actually develops some form of natural immunity
So it's
because we're exposed to that infection,
yeah.
and we enjoy some level of protection.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen with all infections, but
Oh,
with some,
okay.
and then another important point based on what you just said is that
Oh,
there are some vaccines that even as adults we still need to receive booster doses.
studies.
Not all,
Okay.
but some. Take for instance hepatitis B.
Okay.
Especially if you're an adult who has a high risk of exposure. A good example are healthcare workers that attending directly to patients that are infected, because there could be things like needle stick injuries and all that. So these people in particular need to receive the booster doses for hepatitis B.
Okay.
You also have like the pregnant women; they also need to receive tetanus,
Booster
toxoid,
doses.
yes, booster doses for protection for both them and their babies. Okay,
Yes.
so there are just a few scenarios where we would need to actually